Hi, everyone, and welcome to my video on how to navigate through a buyer's representation agreement. This is a role-playing session, and hopefully you'll get some good tips on how to work through the various aspects of the buyer's representation agreement. So before we do that, a little bit about us. We are White Rock Realty. We're an independent brokerage with agents across the state of Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico. I am Brad Anderson. I'm the broker. And should you want anything that I display in the video, feel free to reach out. I'm more than glad to share it with you. If you are not a White Rock agent, we would love the opportunity to see if you might want to be. And so you can always go to whiterocktexas.info and see what we have to offer and set up an appointment to chat. These are the other videos in this series. They are all role play videos, and I think you'll find them helpful. So they're all on the YouTube channel. So take a look at those. So before we get started, just a disclaimer. All videos contain dialogue and examples that are purely fictitious. All data, including compensation examples, names, addresses, are used for example purposes only and are not real. All data should not be interpreted as a directive, suggestion, or mandate to use. And then I'm going to read some dialogue from a lot of our contracts, which simply says, broker compensation or the sharing of compensation between brokers is not set by law, nor fixed, controlled, recommended, or suggested by the Texas Realtors Association, the MLS, or any listing service. Broker compensation is fully negotiable. Brokers independently determine their fees. Okay, so today we are going to go through the buyer's representation agreement, specifically the part about compensation. And so let me just kind of set the scene for you. So I have a couple that is looking to buy a home, James and Jim and Jane, and we are at the tail end of our buyer consultation. And I have already determined what kind of home they're looking for, what they're pre-qualified for, and what neighborhood they want to be in based on schools, commute to work, and all that good stuff. And so the final step in that process is to review and have them sign the buyer's representation agreement. Okay, so it might go like this. Okay, so Jim and Jane, thank you so much for hiring me or giving me the chance to interview with you to be your realtor. I love where you're looking. I love the kind of home that you're looking for. I can imagine it's just very exciting. I see this all the time. This is the best part of my job. I love getting people into homes that are right for them. And so before we move forward, kind of last step is, unfortunately, we really can't move forward until I get an agreement signed. And that's kind of what you're looking at here. So before we kind of go through this, I think it's important for any realtor to present to you what they're going to do for you. And so I am leaving with you this document, and this just kind of outlines, certainly not an exhaustive list, but a pretty robust list of what I will do for you as a realtor. And then I kind of go on to outline what costs come my way, and then what the National Association of Realtors requires me to abide by. And quite frankly, I mean, we're going to go through a lot between now and the time that we close on your next home. And it's my job to get you the most amount of home for the least amount of money. It is my job to not waste your time. It is my job to listen to you, both verbally and non-verbally, to understand what it is that you want in a home. All right. And believe me, there are a lot of potential twists and turns that can happen between now and closing day. And it is my job to get in front of those potential landmines, I kind of call them, so that they don't happen. Right. And so that is really the thrust of what I do. I am going to be available to you nearly 24 hours a day. And I'm going to work my tail off for you. So that being said, let's just kind of go through the listing agreement. And before we kind of get into this, just let me say that anything in here can always be changed later. All right. So today, don't think that this is irreversible. But this is kind of how this goes. It's 5 pages long. The term I like to set for a good 6 months. So today until the next 6 months, and I'm going to tell you why. Because we may not find your perfect home right away, and you want to allow enough time to do that. You may have some kind of life change where you find you're making more or less money that could influence what homes you can now go buy. And then second, and then last, the home that you do buy that we end up writing a contract on, well, we don't know what situation the seller is in either. And so it may not be a traditional 30-day close. All right. And so I always want to allow enough time for anything that might happen. So if you're okay with that, and if we find a home before 6 months, then that's fine too, all the better. But I just don't want to have to come back and re-sign a whole set of papers, if that's okay. Okay. It goes on to describe the broker's obligations, the client's obligations, and then it comes down here with regards to how I, as the agent, get paid. So let me just say up front that, as it says here, the compensation between me and the other agent, it's not set in stone, it's not mandated, it's not fixed, it's always negotiable, always has been in the state of Texas. Okay. But I do charge a certain amount for my services. And typically that is 3% of the sales price. Now it goes on to say in the agreement that where does that money come from? And so in paragraph B here, it says broker will seek to obtain payment of the fees specified in paragraph 7A, which is right here, first from the seller. So we're going to go to the seller and we're going to ask if the seller is willing to pay my compensation. That is actually very normal and very typical. Okay. However, it then says if such persons refuse or fail to pay the broker the amount specified, then you as the client agree to pay that amount. Okay. So just keep in mind that 3% of, let's just say the top end of your budget is $400,000. That's going to be $12,000. Now, mind you, I will earn every penny of it, but you've got to figure out if that happens, how you're going to come up with that money. So let me just kind of go through a couple of scenarios to put your mind at ease, because I know that with everybody, money's tight. The last thing you want to do is write a separate check to pay the buyer's agent. So number one, we're going to ask the seller if they are going to provide compensation for me. If the answer is no, then we can also ask the seller if they can provide money towards your closing costs, because that's kind of what this is. Okay. Your lender should be fine with putting that money towards that. So the seller can contribute in 2 different ways. The third way is that if the answer is no to both those questions, then I would want you to go back to your lender to determine how we can work that payment into the loan amount or something to do with the lending process. Okay, so that's not for me to decide. I'm not a lender. That's a conversation between you and your lender. So that being said, we have to make sure that whatever homes we're looking at, we get the answer to those questions, right? So when we go about the process of looking for homes, this is kind of how this is going to work. We're going to agree to go see, let's say, 3 homes this Saturday. Well, it's my job to call that listing agent and determine, before the appointment is ever set, a couple of things. One is, are you working any other offers for this home? Because we don't want to waste your time if the seller already has a contract in their hand and it's going to be a losing proposition. Then secondarily, I'm going to ask that agent, is your seller going to pay for the buyer's agent's compensation? Okay. And once I get the answer to those questions on all 3 of those homes, I'm going to call you back and I'm going to say, this is what we found on each of these homes. And then you're going to determine which homes you're going to want to go see. Okay. So let's say one of the 3 homes, the buyer is going to contribute the full 3% that we agreed to. In the second home, they're only going to contribute half. And the third home, they're not going to contribute anything. So at that kind of fork in the road, you're going to have to determine which homes you're going to want to go see. You may want to go see all 3 of them. And if you happen to fall in love with that third one that is not going to pay the compensation for my services, you're going to have to, figure out a way to come up with that amount of money. Okay. But that is completely up to you. And all this is negotiable. And depending on the kind of, the home that we want to make an offer on, this could change. Right. But that being said, there is a probability that you might have to come up with the money to pay my compensation. Okay. Are you okay with that? Okay. All right. And then basically that is it on the agreement. Now, mind you, if we wake up one day and we decide we don't want to work with each other anymore, this can all be terminated. So don't worry about that. But I do need to, by law, have this signed. And so if you want to sign this now, we can go ahead and do that. We can start the process now, get you out there looking at homes, or if you want to take a look at this and think it over, that's fine too. But I'm going to leave you with this document and this, which pretty much articulates what it is that I'm going to do for you for that money. Okay? Okay. All right. And that is kind of it. You're going to run into buyers that are never, ever going to be able to pay your compensation. And you're going to have a hard discussion about the fact that you're going to only go see homes that the seller contributes. And then you're going to have people that have the extra money and they can pay it, or something in between, which is I can pay some of it, but I can't pay all of it. And then you as the agent have to determine what you want to do at that point. Okay. But hopefully you found this dialogue helpful. And that concludes the video on the buyer's representation as it relates to the long form.